I thought it was very, very important because there wasn't really any representation at all in the CrossFit community. And I was one of those kids growing up in the sport. Like, I knew I was gay and I like didn't have anyone to look up to. I didn't have anyone to be like, this person's doing it, like I can too. So like a big reason why I decided to post it, I wanted to like inspire people, and like I wanted other kids and other people who are going through the same thing to realize that I'm the same person that I was when I was like posting all the crazy gymnastics videos and stuff. I was the same person then when I qualified for the CrossFit Games. And like, yeah, it definitely took a lot of courage, and like it was something I had wanted to do for a while. And I think moving to New York and just surrounding myself with friends and with people who like 100% supported me, and kind of like it's normalized in New York City, you know, like it's something people aren't afraid of. And it just took time in that environment for me to realize that like it could have such a positive impact on other people's lives, and just like was a huge weight relief like off of my shoulders too.
Hello and welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm Dr. Julie Fouché, family physician and former CrossFit Games athlete. Here, I bring you information and inspiration to help bridge the gap between fitness and medicine and support your journey toward your healthiest self. In this episode, I sit down with CrossFit Games athlete Alec Smith. Now, Alec has been a staple in the sport since his first regionals appearance in 2013, and he first started doing CrossFit alongside his brother Ben Smith, who you may know as the 10 times CrossFit Games athlete and legend in the sport. Alec is known for his expertise in gymnastics, as well as for being one of the first openly gay male athletes in the sport. Alec competed as an individual at the CrossFit Games in 2017 and 2018, and then took second place at the CrossFit Games on Team CrossFit Krypton in 2019. And in this conversation, we talk about some of his favorite competition moments, as well as how after a year or two of struggle and uncertainty, things are finally falling into place to set him up for a great 2021 season, where he's training with a great group of people and great coaches in Nashville, Tennessee. We also spent some time talking about his experience of having the courage to make a hard decision to get outside his comfort zone a couple years ago, really find himself and come out to his family and the world, and how much happier he has been as a result. So I really enjoyed talking with Alec, and there were so many things that I could relate to him on. I hope our conversation resonates with you as well. Before we dive into the episode, though, I do want to make it clear that this podcast is for general information only and does not provide medical advice. I recommend that you seek assistance from your personal physician for any health conditions or concerns. Now let's get started with the episode. Welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm super excited to be here with Alec Smith, and so excited. I have so many questions for you today, but I thought maybe the best place to start is just at the beginning of your story with sort of your background athletically growing up. I know you did a lot of gymnastics. We last saw each other at Power Monkey Camp where you were showing off a lot of your moves, but give us some background just on what things were like for you growing up.
Yeah, so my family was a very athletic family. My parents kind of put us into a ton of different sports growing up and kind of like let us choose which ones that we liked and which ones we wanted to do. And my brothers both chose baseball and I chose gymnastics. So I started gymnastics they put me in it when I was 2. So I was like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, really, really young.
That's really early. I started so late for a gymnast. I think I started when I was in maybe 3rd or 4th grade. I was old.
Yeah. Like you have to put your kids in like super early now for them to like be really, really competitive.
Yeah.
But yeah, my parents put all of us in it, and I was like the only one of my siblings that kind of just like fell in love with it. And like I looked forward to like practice every single day. So like I did competitive gymnastics from like age 6, like whenever I could start, to about 12. So when I was 12, I actually got into a car accident, so I couldn't compete anymore. I had to get surgery on my shoulder. So did gymnastics up until I was about 12. And then like high school, I didn't really like find another sport like gymnastics that I kind of fell in love with. So I played a bunch of different sports. Like I graduated high school with like 16 varsity letters.
Oh, I didn't even know there was that many sports.
So I played volleyball. I swam and dove, mostly dove. I swam like 1 year, and then I played tennis and ran track in the same season. So I was I love sports and I love being competitive. Yeah. So I just did like a ton of stuff growing up. That's awesome that you like didn't let that competitive fire die after the car accident. Like I can see
you probably being super bummed out, not being able to do gymnastics anymore with it being such a big part of your life, but you just put it into everything else, it sounds like.
Yeah. It was like one of those things that like I knew I wanted to do some type of sport or some type of fitness growing up. Like that's just what I enjoyed. Like I didn't really enjoy school that much. Like I was a good student, but like my heart really wasn't in it. And like, my heart was always in a sport or like something that I was doing like physical. So yeah, I just did like a ton of sports growing up and didn't like pick one that I liked. I went into college and played volleyball in like my first semester. And then tore my ACL actually. So like I went to school to play volleyball, and then like my first match tore my ACL. So
oh my gosh.
another one of those things where I like didn't really know what I wanted to do. And at the time, like Ben had competed at his first CrossFit Games. So this was in 2010. So he competed in 2009. So I knew what CrossFit was at the time, just never really like got myself into it and kind of like used it. Ben was like, yeah, why don't you start squatting and lifting, get your legs stronger. So kind of like used it as a way to get my knee healthier and just like didn't go back to anything else and just kind of like fell in love with it at the time. And that was like 2010. That was so long ago.
Wow. It's crazy that it's been that like 11 years. It's wild.
No, it
wow.
Like,
so, go ahead.
It like feels like forever ago, but at the same time, like doesn't feel like that long ago. It's hard.
Right. It is kind of crazy that you can think about, wow, it was over a decade ago. So when you just, you weren't going to be able to play volleyball anymore in college and you started doing CrossFit, when did it turn from something that was like, oh, I'm just going to do this to get stronger and rehab my knee and maybe get back to playing other sports into, I want to make this my main sport? Or was it first just, I'm going to do this for fun and to stay in shape?
Yeah. So at first it was just for fun. I knew I had like 9 months recovery ahead of me. So like 2010, 11, I kind of just like used it to get my legs stronger. Didn't really like put 100% effort into it. And this was my first year in college. So like, I still wanted to like be a good college student and like focus on that. But then after I started getting healthier and like getting back to 100%, it was kind of like one of those things where like, I don't know, like Ben introduced CrossFit to me and was like, hey, like I'm doing these muscle ups. And I was like, oh, I did those when I was a kid all the time. And so like, I kind of like felt like I already had kind of a step ahead with the gymnastics stuff. So like I would always compete with Ben in those workouts and those workouts only. And like, I didn't the barbell stuff or like the conditioning stuff. I was like, oh, I'll go do muscle ups and rope climbs with you. No problem.
Yeah. And
then I did my first open in 2012 and I did the burpees, the 7 minutes of like burpees to a target.
Yes. How could we forget that one?
Yeah, it's like the worst thing I'd ever done in my life. And like afterwards I was like, okay, like I really want to get better at CrossFit because I think that I could do really well in it. And so like I didn't finish that open in 2012, but that was kind of like the 2012 open is what motivated me to like train harder for 2013. And then 2013 was the first year I made regional. So that was kind of like the 2012-13 area was like where I really put everything I wanted into it.
Wow. And then you had your first regional experience in 2013. And since then, I think you've competed pretty much every year since then, correct?
Yeah. So I competed 13 up until 2014. I went team at regionals, 15 individual, 16, 17, 18. And
then team.
Yeah, then team again last year. I can't remember if that was 19 or 20. That was 19.
19. Yeah, I know they're all starting to blend together, especially the weird 1920 season is like very confusing. So you've had so many experiences as an individual and also on a team, and you guys crushed it. Team Krypton, podiuming at the CrossFit Games. What are some of the moments, whether it's in training or in competition, that stand out to you as like moments that were really special or things that you're never going to forget?
Oh my gosh, there's so many of them.
I know. Those are a lot of years. There's a lot of memories there.
Honestly, the very first year I qualified for the games, like after that last event at regionals where like I made it, I spent like maybe an hour just kind of like pinching myself and like wondering if it was real because I had been training for 4 years at the time to qualify for the games. And like I had watched Ben at the games since 2010 and it was just like the most surreal feeling like I had ever felt. So definitely qualifying for my first CrossFit Games. And then last year on a team, like that was so much fun for me. I was getting a little bit stressed just like competing individually, like how stressful it is. It was like so good to have a team with me at the games and I kind of like fell back in love with the sport.
Yeah.
Competing on a team at the games, like to be more specific, the sprint event last year, we won that one. And that was like, I don't know, it was just like the best feeling at like just overcoming with emotions. And so like those two things I think are like the 1 and 2 for me.
That's amazing. I love that. What impact do you think, you talked about how obviously it was very surreal the first time you made it to the games, and you had a very up close view to like what it took, and seeing Ben go through it and compete at the games and seeing his training, like what impact do you think that had on you, being able to also be successful?
A huge effect. Like if it weren't for Ben, I don't even think I'd be doing CrossFit right now. I got to train with him like from the very, very start. So like, obviously it's a very, very positive thing. And like seeing how hard he works and seeing the amount of effort and the amount of time you need to put into training, like I knew what it took to get there, and I had the time, and I was young when I started. So like, he was like the best training partner you could ask for. Like he's been to the game anybody else in the world.
Right.
So just like training with him and like growing up with him was like amazing. And I think it for sure like has been like the number one thing that has led to my successes. At the same time, it was also tough. Like it was very, very tough thing, like every single workout, and like having training partners that beat you in things, because then it's like, am I good enough? Like, am I going to be able to do this? But like for sure, it was amazing having him to train for it. And like living here, like I'm not back at home anymore. So like I definitely miss training with them and training with the crew. Yeah, just like having him there, like he for sure is the reason why I'm like where I'm at today.
Yeah, I think it makes such a difference for just to have that insight, and also just to sort of normalize and see that like these people who make it to the games are normal people, and they have good days and bad days, and like they train hard and they make the hard decisions when other people aren't, and just seeing those things every day I think makes it more real.
Yeah,
that's
like Ben would have some of his friends come and train like other games athletes. So like being able to like meet all these games athletes like from like 2010 on, like it was cool to see that they're just like normal people. A lot of people look at games athletes as like, I don't know, like these superheroes or these people who are just like so fit, but it's like the regular people is just the amount of work you put into it, and like knowing what it takes and just having that confidence to like push yourself that hard. So it was definitely great to like grow up like meeting and knowing the top level games athlete.
For sure. Yeah. Surrounding yourself by the people who are doing what you want to do, it definitely, I think, elevates us to be able to make it. You mentioned how you were getting a little bit maybe burned out from individual competition, and the team really sort of reinvigorated you. And you've been competing for a lot of years. Your first regional was 2013. Other than that, which I guess maybe was like 2018 before you did team, were there time periods where you thought like, maybe I don't want to do this anymore, or struggled with your motivation or things like that? Or did you just always know I'm going to go back year after year and I just love it?
So when I was first starting, when I was like when I was younger and like wasn't really injured, didn't have any aches and pains, and was just like super motivated, I felt great and like never once thought like, I don't want to do this. This isn't what I want to do. Like, this is too hard. Like I had those goals to like make the games and like win the games. And I think 2018 was like a really, really tough year for me personally. And that was kind of where I decided to move away from home, and I lived in New York City for the year. And a lot of things in my life that changed, and it was hard to put everything I had into training when I was like trying to find myself, trying to like figure out what I wanted to do with my life, trying to figure out like who I wanted to be. So 2018 was a really tough year for me, and that was like right when the games ended. The 2018 games ended, and like leading into that season. I'd still been training, and I still wanted to qualify individually for the games in 2019, but it wasn't like my number one priority. I knew that if I didn't like focus on myself and like didn't get my mental health right, that like it wouldn't be worth it in the end. And there were so many things I wanted to do and so many things that I wanted to try, and just like 2018 was just like it was just a tough year, but it was a really, really good year full of growth. Yeah.
Transformational. Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel like I can relate to that. And I think that's something that's very normal that everybody goes through to some degree. Like for me, it was definitely 2011, 12, where I'd been competing for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden all this stuff was going on in my life. And I had to stop and ask myself, like, whoa, who am I? Like, what do I really want? Why am I doing this? And a lot of times it's a lot of emotional ups and downs that come with it. But once you ask yourself those questions, and then like, this is who I am, this is why I'm doing it, and what I love, then it's so much more rewarding. But definitely hard to go through. Can you elaborate any more on like what that time period was like for you, and some of the things that were helpful for you in sort of like getting clarity?
Yeah, for sure. So like from a very young age, like I knew that I was gay. And so it wasn't like a thing that my family really like talked about growing up. Like my family's very like religious and conservative. So it was just like a very tough thing for me to swallow. So I think I threw a lot of my focus and effort and time into training, into CrossFit, into school, into sports, whatever it was. But I kind of like reached a point where I was just so unhappy. And like I wasn't unhappy until like 2016, 17, 18. Like 18 was that year where I just like reached a moment and I was like, I'm like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Like, do I want to be living my whole entire life like this? Like, I would have reached a point where like, I just wouldn't have been able to take it anymore. So I came out to my family in 2017 and then it was.
So you said this whole time, like you knew from a young age, but like you had never really talked to your family about it just because of how you were afraid of how it would be perceived. Yeah. Wow. So that's a lot to live with for a long, long time.
It was also one of those things, like it was a lot to live with, but I just like pushed it so far under the rug that like, I mean, obviously I thought about it every day, but it was like one of those things where I'm like, I have this to do. I have like CrossFit to do. I can focus on CrossFit. I can like prove myself by qualifying for the CrossFit Games and like being the fittest on earth. And just like reached the point where I was like, I can't do that anymore. So yeah, 2018 is kind of where I publicly came out. And so that's when I moved away. So I've been living at home my whole entire life. I went to school 30 minutes away from my parents and from my gym. So this was like the first time I had ever really been on my own, done my own thing. And I'm just like so grateful that it like only took a year to grow and to figure out who I am, figure out what I want. Sometimes it takes people a very long time. I mean, it took a long time leading up to that point, but that year itself, I'm just like grateful it only took that 1 year. And I'm like really, really, really happy where I'm at now. I'm like really focused and like I fell back in love with what I'm doing and like who I am. And I'm just so happy it only took a year.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And to think about how much courage it took to like make that decision, just to like be true to who you are, and also go out on your own and answer these hard questions for yourself and kind of figure out what's going on. During that year, were there things that, like you said, you're grateful it only took a year, but were there things that you found were really helpful in figuring out like the people around you, or things that you did that helped you work through it?
For sure. The number one thing for me was to get into an uncomfortable environment. I was just so comfortable growing up because I had everything I needed, and I'm so grateful for that. But at the same time, like I didn't like, I think it hit me like when I first started traveling for CrossFit competitions and like seeing different places and meeting different people and learning about different cultures. I think that's kind of when my mind started opening up, and I started to realize there's so much more to life than like just the little bubble that I was living in. And like moving to New York and like surrounding myself with like-minded people, with people who like 100% supported me and like were comfortable talking about things. And like, I opened up to a lot of people there, and just like, I surrounded myself with people who loved me, you know, like not that my family doesn't love me. They love me so much. Like I'm not saying that. It's just very different because I'm able to just like be open and be myself, like in a place like New York City and in a place like with friends. So like that was number one for me, is just like putting myself into an environment that made sense for me and made sense for like who I was and who I am. And then, yeah, it was just like surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded, I think is the best thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. This is really hitting close to home for me right now too, because and by the time this podcast comes out, I will have talked more about it on social media, but I also just recently went through a time period of realizing like I wasn't really living in a way that was true to myself. And it causes, like, you can push it down for so long and you realize that there's a lot of like, as much as you think like you can focus on these other things, like for me, it was like school and CrossFit and all that other stuff, but eventually it bubbles up and you realize like, okay, this isn't really true to myself and like me living the best life that I can possibly live. And it's scary to go out and make those decisions, like, putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation. But usually when you do, it's scary and there might be a lot of like pain and confusion along the way. But once you do, I can just tell from talking to you, you are so happy in your life and like comfortable in who you are. And I feel like that's been true for me too. And true for so many people, no matter what situation they're in. Like there's a lot of things that we probably know that are true deep down in our heart, but we make excuses for it, or we like get busy with other stuff so we don't have to think about it. But once we deal with it, it kind of sets us free and gives us a lot of freedom.
Yeah, for sure. I think a big thing is just like how you were raised and grown up. Like I was raised to be like this perfect straight A student, white picket fence, like married with kids by age 24, 25. And like takes a time in someone's life to realize that not everybody's life is like that. And like some people it takes longer than others. But like once you realize that like everybody is so different and like you need to live your life the way you should be living it, that's when like things really change.
So true. So true. And it's so hard in the world today, especially like when you are surrounded by a certain environment where there are certain, expectations that you think, and especially with social media too. I mean, there's great things about social media where, you get to see a lot of different people in the way they live their lives, but it's not always showing everything that's going on under the surface. And, it's just, I'm the same way. I'm just grateful that I've been able to have some of these realizations now and not, 10, 20 years from now. So
yeah. I didn't want to be 10 years down the road and like regret a decision that I didn't make now. Yeah.
Well, good for you. Also, when you said, I can't remember what time you said, but when you came out publicly, you had an amazing video that you posted that was very like raw and emotional and got picked up by Ellen, and, everyone in the CrossFit community was talking about it, and it was super powerful. Why was that something that was important to you? Because I think a lot of people would say like, you don't necessarily need to come out publicly like that, but I think that it had a huge impact on so many people and probably took a lot of courage for you to do it. So why was it something that was important for you? And then what was it like and what was the response?
For sure. So I had a few friends that I've known since about like 2015, 16. So I knew that it wasn't something that I needed to do. I didn't need to post about it. I didn't need to like say anything to anyone. We're at like a time where like it is more normalized, but there's so much, like the road is so much longer. There's so much more that can be normalized. But the main thing and the main reason why I wanted to like, one, just like for myself, like I had a big following at the time and like I have a big following in the CrossFit community. I thought it was very, very important because there wasn't really any representation at all in the CrossFit community. And I was one of those kids growing up in the sport. Like I knew I was gay and I like didn't have anyone to look up to. I didn't have anyone to be like, this person's doing it, like I can too. So like a big reason why I decided to post it, I wanted to like inspire people, and like I wanted other kids and other people who are going through the same thing to realize that like I'm the same person that I was when I was like posting all the crazy gymnastics videos, stuff. I was the same person then when I qualified for the CrossFit Games. And like, yeah, it definitely took a lot of courage, and like it was something I had wanted to do for a while. And I think moving to New York and just surrounding myself with friends and with people who like 100% supported me, and kind of like it's normalized in New York City, like it's something people aren't afraid of. And it just took time in that environment for me to realize that like it could have such a positive impact on other people's lives. And just like was a huge weight relief like off my shoulders too. So those were like the two main reasons why.
That's amazing. And then was it scary to post it? And then what was the response after you did?
Yeah, so it was very scary. And I just like turned my phone off. Like I turned my phone off and like went to bed. I didn't open my phone until like middle of the day the next day. Just I knew that there were going to be a lot of like texts and phone calls and comments. stuff like that. And when like I did open my phone and like read everything, I was just like, I can't really like explain that feeling. Just like the support from the CrossFit community and like from all of like the CrossFit athletes, like the support from like people that I didn't even like know, like people that I don't personally know, but I knew who they were, like reaching out. I honestly didn't think it was going to be that big of a reaction. Like I knew that there were going to be like negative comments and like I just didn't realize how many positive comments there were going to be. Yeah, it was an amazing feeling. I don't really know how to describe it.
Well,
pretty surreal.
That's incredible. Well, I know it took a lot of courage, and I'm so glad you did. And I know that I know that it's helped so many people, and just for, upcoming CrossFitters or CrossFit athletes to have role models like you can really change a person's life. It can change the way that they think about what's possible for themselves. So thank you for doing that. I'm glad you did.
Thank you. It feels weird to think of myself in that position, but yeah, I'm glad people have someone to look up to, someone to like know that it's possible to qualify,
For sure. Okay. So on that note, well, let's go back to your training. So you had an amazing year in 2019 with the team. And then we had this crazy 2020 season, which was so unexpected and different formats and all kinds of crazy stuff. Talk us through what happened for you during 2020 and then your decision to move to Nashville. And then we'll get into kind of where things are at now.
So 2020, was a crazy year. So I was training to qualify back for the games individually, and the Open's not my strong suit. I've never been good at the Open. I'm not an Open athlete. I'm definitely more of an athlete. I think I finished around 60th place in the Open. So like I didn't qualify straight for the games from there. So I was training for sanctionals. I competed at Wodapalooza, and like I had a plan I had like 4, I think, sanctionals planned out for the year. Flew out to Australia, competed in one of the Australia sanctionals, and right after that had happened, everything shut down. Like I remember almost being like stuck in Australia, like barely,
oh my gosh,
get a plane out of Australia.
That's scary.
Yeah. So like my plan was to qualify for the games individually, it just like wasn't in the books for me that year. Which honestly was like a really good thing looking back on it. I had like a lot more time to like at the time in Australia, like I was single and I had like all of these plans and like wanted to do all these competitions and like once COVID hit, it was just like one of those things where I could like take a step back and like reassess like what I wanted to do with the year, because I knew that like 2020 was out of the picture. And I actually like I'm in a relationship now, and it was one of those things that like COVID brought us together. And like I don't think it would be something that's happening now if it weren't for COVID and if it weren't for like the quarantine and everything. And, like, because we kind of like quarantined together, so we spent so much time together.
Yeah, it's a great way to get to know people real quick.
Yeah, for sure. And like I think just after like the first couple months, it just like made us really, really close really quickly, and made us realize that like if we can be together during quarantine where we're like at throats and like like anything together for a while, so it really like strengthened our relationship. And like it was just like I think 2020 was like the best year of my life just because I met Riley. So I'm just like I'm just like very, very happy that like we were able to like spend that time together and like get to know each other.
That's amazing. Yes. I mean, COVID has been a huge pain in the butt, but there's been so many hidden blessings in it for sure. And then you decided to move to Nashville. So where did that come from? You were previous to that, were you still in New York?
So flying back from Australia, I had like a month left in my lease in New York. And like at the time it was kind of like a hot spot, like don't go to New York. So I flew from Australia to Minnesota, and because that's where Riley's from. So I actually flew to Riley, and he has a lake house in Minnesota that we like quarantined in for like
got it.
Yeah, so we were like at that time it was like no one really knew anything about the virus. Like we just knew not to like be around like a lot of people. So we just like, quarantined his lake cabin, which was like there was just snow everywhere, and it was just like it was.
That's really a much better place to be than New York, I would say.
So I just like I got movers to go and put my New York stuff into a storage unit just because I didn't want to be in the city with COVID and everything. so we just like quarantined in his lake house. But yeah, so I was in New York last year, but like I have all my stuff now, just like didn't go back after Australia.
Got it.
Yeah.
COVID. And then at some point you decided, hey, I'm going to move to Nashville. There's people to train with there. It looks like a good environment.
I knew there was a second part to the question. I just like completely forgot. So after we spent time in Minnesota, we decided I had a house in North Carolina where I was living before I moved to New York, and I was renting it out at the time. And the people that were renting it like literally just moved out.
Okay.
So Riley and I both went down to my house in North Carolina and kind of like quarantined ourselves there for a couple more months. And so I was in North Carolina at the time and decided to sell my house. So I sold my house and was actually living with my parents for a month. And so like during this whole time, I was kind of like trying to figure out where I wanted to live. Like I knew I didn't want to live in Virginia. And I knew I didn't want to go to New York, and I didn't really know where I wanted to go. And Riley and I kind of decided at that time, because this was about like 4 or 5 months into spending like every second together. We knew we wanted to be together, and we didn't know where that was going to be. Like we didn't know if we wanted to live like in Virginia or Minnesota, where like he's from and I'm from. Like we knew we didn't want to live at either of those places.
Okay.
And Brooke had like just told me that she's moving to Nashville. And we knew like Will was here and like we had a gym to train at. So it was kind of like we both wanted to live in a warmer location too. Like he's from Minnesota where it's cold. I was just in New York where it was like very cold.
Yeah.
And, so we just kind of like landed on Nashville. We knew like I knew that I was going to have like Brooke and Will as training partners and Street too. And he can work from home, so he can kind of like be anywhere. And like he knew he wanted to be somewhere warm, and like he wanted to be in a bigger city. So we just like kind of fell on Nashville. It kind of like all came together into one. So not like one main reason, just like a lot of smaller reasons.
Little things. Yeah.
But
it all worked out.
Yeah.
That's great. And so I know the whole group trained with Brooke through, her game season, and were great training partners pushing her. And now it sounds like you've all decided to join on with Shane Orr and do his programming, the proven programming. So talk to us about that. Like, what has it been like? Like, how do you guys all decide? Is Tia there training with you? I'm so curious about all of it.
Yeah. So, like moving to Nashville, like that wasn't even it wasn't even any, like the back of anybody's heads. That wasn't a plan or anything like that. We like just knew we wanted to train together. And like leading up to the games training with Brooke, like we all just got along really well. Like the vibes were just like really, really good. And, after the games had ended, Brooke like made a switch. Like her and Tia got really close to the games, and it was just like one of those things that just kind of like came together like for everybody. Because I know Tia and Shane, they're planning on moving to Nashville. I think that they did. So they're in Korea right now, bobsledding, I think.
Yeah. Bobsled. Yeah. One of those winter sports.
Yeah, exactly. Brooke wanted to like a change in pace of programming, so her and Tia just became really close, and it just like was a great choice for her. So like Brooke decided to join Proven with Tia and with Shane, and Tia and Shane had come down to like train with us for a little bit before all of this happened. And I know that Shane wanted to take on new athletes, and so Proven decided to add a couple coaches and a couple more athletes to the roster. And so it just made sense because we're all going to be together. We wanted to be doing the same thing. We wanted to be training together. So it all just like came together perfectly. And so now we're doing proven programming, which has been great. It's been really tough.
I can only imagine.
Some days are like 6 or 7 hours in the gym.
Wow.
Some days are shorter, but yeah, it's been good. I just know I'm going to be very, very fit this year. And I know that I'm going to be happy this year. And it's just been really, really great training with them. There's just like really good chemistry between all of us. So yeah, I think it's going to be a great year. I think there was something else I was going to say, but I don't remember.
That's okay. No, it's amazing to see how all these pieces are coming together, like not planned unexpectedly, but just being in the right place, the right people around you. Really ready to sort of take off on this season.
It's going to be it. We have a really good feeling about this year. All of us do. It's like, it's good for all of us. It's good to have top level athletes pushing each other every day. Like I feel like if you're training by yourself and you don't have that push, it's almost like impossible to like be at that next level, like
Mm-hmm.
really, really hard to do it on your own.
100%. Yeah. So much easier when you have people around you pushing you.
Yeah. I've never had a coach before. So like I've never had I've just always trained with Ben. I've always done Ben's programming and Ben's training. So this is like the first year that I will like have a coach and like have a program to follow and somebody to talk to. So like, and I'm the type of person that like does really, really well with a coach and with people to talk to. Ben's so good at like just doing his own thing. Like that's what he's good at, where it's like very opposites when it comes to that. So yeah, it's good to have like someone to like talk to about programming and about workouts and about how like this went wrong or how this went well. So yeah, I'm just like excited to like have someone like in my corner, like as a coach this year. It's always just been like a friend, or just like somebody that I know with my coach's pass.
Yeah. No, that's huge. I was the same way. I always really preferred to have a coach and someone that I knew they could kind of take that on their plate and I would just follow instructions. That was always how I liked to do it and worked well for me. So
yeah, it's like I have something, I'm like, check. But if I have it in front of me, I'm like, 30 muscle-ups for time.
Yeah. Like, let me just do the stuff I really like.
Yeah. Exactly.
So true. So what would you say is a typical day like for you now? You said you're at the gym for 6 or 7 hours, but take us through what that's like.
Yep. So normally, I guess it depends on the day of the week, but Mondays like today, woke up at 8. We train from like 9 to 12:30. And then we'll have like an hour and a half we'll break for lunch. And then we'll train again from like 2 to 4-ish. So usually Mondays and Tuesdays are double sessions, which is like kind of normal for most top level CrossFit Games athletes. And then we have active recovery days on Thursday, which is like usually an hour to 2 hours of some type of cardio. And then Sundays we have completely off. So it's basically like the active recovery days are tough. Like they're not easy.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's like you're mentally like in it from Monday to Saturday. And then like Sunday's kind of like the day where I will literally play, like sit on the couch and like play Pokemon for like hours. Like I won't get on my phone. Like I like won't do anything. It's just like let my brain like just completely relax.
Just shut off.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, it's been really, really tough so far, but it's been really, really good.
That's great. Anything in particular that you do for nutrition or recovery or otherwise that you found to be really helpful through all these years?
Yeah. So nutrition's one thing that I've tried just about everything. I'm kind of like, well, I was one of those people like growing up in the sport, like I just ate whatever I wanted to, whenever I wanted to. And like, I never thought about like, I want to look this certain way or I want to like look like that. It was always just like, I needed food because I wanted to put on weight. Like I was a smaller athlete when I first started. So I've always wanted to put on weight. And the first year that I actually started counting macros was 2017. And that was the year that I qualified for the games. And so that was like the first year where I kind of like, I wanted to learn. I wanted to know like what was going into my body because I know that's so important. And like I just like, realized I wasn't eating enough like carbs. I was eating a lot of food, but it was like it wasn't food that was great for me. So 2017, 18 were like years where I learned a lot about nutrition, and I tried a lot of different things. Tried paleo, I tried keto, I tried high carb diet, high fat diet, like a bunch of things. Just like I just like found for myself that like high carb diets work for me. And so I just like, that's one thing that I like focus on. So like, I don't really count macros right now, but like I know kind of what my body needs. So like, I just know that I need to eat carbs, whether it's like rice or like pasta or like whatever it is. I just try to get carbs in. But that's one thing I do want to like dial into leading up to this season is like, making sure I get like what I need. But yeah, nutrition is super important. It's like one of those things that like a lot of people don't think too much about, but like
it can make a huge difference. And I love how you talked about doing all the sort of self-experimentation with all these different things to figure out what worked best for you.
So I tried doing vegan too in 2018. Because I think a lot of people watch that documentary, and so like I like took a body composition test, and like this is just me. I'm not saying like it's not great for everybody. Before I started, and like 1 month later, and like on a vegan diet, so like I wasn't counting macros, so I like could have been eating so many more fats than proteins or whatever. But like I stayed the same weight. I had lost like 5 pounds of muscle and like just gained like 7 pounds of fat or something like that.
Yeah.
That was all like just through the tests that I took. And like, it was just like so mind blowing to me, just like how much diet and like what you put into your body plays a factor on like your body composition. Like even like my training stayed the same. Like I wasn't training differently. Yeah, that was kind of like a big eye opener for me and like made me realize like what you put into your body is like super important.
For sure. And I love what you said about doing the before and after and getting objective data about it, right? Because it's one thing to know like, oh, I think I feel better in training, or, I like how this diet feels, but you're actually looking at okay, my body composition, my muscle mass went down, and that's not something that I want if I want to be stronger. So I'm going to adjust. And so looking at objective data like that can be super helpful.
Yeah, I like looking at the numbers, but like at the same time, numbers kind of stress me out. So it's a weird,
that's true.
weird relationship between numbers.
That's true. Yes. I agree with that. Anything for recovery that you love to do on like your Sundays while you're playing Pokemon or your active rest days?
Yeah, just like mobility. I'm not a very mobile person. Like a lot of people think I am because of gymnastics, but like I'm very tight. And so like if I don't stretch for at least like 20 or 30 minutes a day, like I can feel it the next day.
Yeah.
Things like I hate stretching. Like I literally like hate it, but I try to at least stretch for like 15 to 20 minutes a day.
And is that something you normally do like at the gym before, after workouts, or like at home?
I should stretch on Sundays, but like, again, it's just like where like, I just don't want to do anything. Like every other day of the week I do. So it's like, once I finish training, I'll like go upstairs and I'll stretch for like 20 minutes, or I'll like go straight home and stretch. Cause if I don't do it like right after training, I like won't do it. Like once I'm training for the day, like I'm done for the day, I won't do it at like 8 or 9 at night before I go to bed. So I just like try to stretch at least for like 20 or 30 minutes a day. I have like supplements that I take every day. Other than that, like not too much like pops into my head in recovery, just like stretching and supplements.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it sounds like so many things have come together for you this season, and I'm really excited to see how you do. And what would you say would be the thing that you are most excited about right now, or most looking forward to this year?
CrossFit related?
Anything. You can say multiple things if you want.
I'm excited to see how this season's going to be structured. I know they've released like a little bit of data about it, but like I'm not really like, we still don't really know exactly how it's going to be set out. So I'm excited to see how this season sets out. Like I miss traveling so much, and like the one thing I loved doing like was just going to different CrossFit events, just like meeting people and like competing, and just like that's what like I miss so much. So like I really hope that this summer, or that they have like those in-person sanctional, I don't know if they're going to be called sanctional events, but I hope they have like CrossFit events this summer to go to. I'm just like looking forward to seeing how I do this year, because I just like I don't know, I really want to do well, but it's like also one of those things I can't think about too much, or else it'll stress me out.
Sure.
I think like this year, just like I'm hoping things get back to how they were pre-COVID. So that's kind of like, I really hope that happens.
For sure. I think everyone in the CrossFit community is hoping that. I think, the community is what makes it so special and what connects so many people across the world through CrossFit. And so it's so hard not to be able to like make those real in-person connections right now. So I think we're all hoping for that this year, hopefully soon. All right. Well, I want to start wrapping up. So there's 3 questions I ask everyone at the end of the podcast. The first one is, what are the 3 things that you do on a regular basis that have the biggest positive impact on your health?
Oh, gosh. I usually will wake up and like set a goal for myself that day. Whether it's like I see the programming and it's like a workout that I like hate the movements for, or like it's a workout I like really just like don't want to do, I'll just like set a goal for myself to like push hard on that workout. So it's like I'll try to look at like the negative part of training and like try to flip it into a positive when I'm going to the gym, like when I'm like in training mode. Like just spending, I guess like just like when like Riley and I are watching Netflix, like I just like make sure to spend time with him. Like he makes me really happy, and that's like my favorite part of the day. It's just like sitting and watching TV with him. That's like more so mental health, I guess.
Yeah, both of those things. I think like trying to have a positive attitude, even about things that maybe you're not looking forward to, and surrounding yourself, like spending time, quality time with the people you care about, are so important.
Yeah.
And your mental health does affect your physical health.
For sure. Absolutely. Third thing, I guess I would say like I at least try to talk to my mom like once a day. So like whether it's texting or like a FaceTime call, like whatever it is, Instagram message, she responds to like most of my Instagram stories anyway.
That's
like,
awesome.
I try to be in like communication with like my mom or like someone.
I love it. I love it. Is there something that you think would have a big impact on your health, but you have a hard time implementing it, or something you haven't tried yet?
I guess it's hard now, but like, I guess putting like myself out there and like meeting new people, that's one thing that I'm not that great at. I kind of like I'm kind of like stuck in my bubble and like how things are like a routine, you know? It's hard with COVID because you can't really like go out and meet people now, but like, that's like one thing that Ryan and I want to do is just like meet more people and like have more connections here. And it's so easy to be like, yeah, let's just not do something tonight. Let's just stay on TV. But I think it's so important to like have relationships with people and like not just like be stuck in your like rut or like stuck in the same exact thing every day. Meeting new people and just like forming relationships. That's one thing that I kind of struggle with that I try to do better at and like what I hope to do better at once COVID like stops.
Yeah, that's a great one. And like you said before, putting yourself sort of out of your comfort zone once in a while, and then, you know, who knows what will develop from people that you may meet.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Last question is, what does a healthy life look like to you?
Honestly, just like happiness. I know it's not corny, but it's like so important, and it really is. And it's like, you just have to surround yourself with people that make you happy. Yeah, sure. Like when you say healthy, you think of like a 6-pack abs and like muscles and stuff, but like those people might not be happy. And like, if those people aren't happy, then they're not living a healthy life. I'll just say, yeah, happiness.
That's such a great point. I love it. It's a perfect note to end on. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with me. This has been great. And for sharing so much of your story, the great parts and the struggles, because I think so many people can relate to that too. And I'm just excited to see all these pieces coming together for you and for you to really be thriving this season and to watch what you do. So thank you so much, Alec.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoy listening to the podcast, please consider subscribing and giving it a 5-star rating on iTunes. It really does help to get the word out to more people.